the way that I felt about craft and life in general was, I don't give a what you think, you know? I don't care what you think about me. I had come from an environment with very little cheerleading going on. And so I created a sort of survival instinct, right, where I would cut people out, you know, and minimize opinions. And the way that I would do that is I had to believe that my opinion was greater than everybody else's opinion around me. Man, we got to get to the root of what the is going on here. You know, something wrong with you. You know, let's get well. I got arrested in Georgia for fighting with a cop, wound up in rehab, and didn't hear a damn thing about God, spirituality, personal growth, accountability. My whole, as soon as I got to rehab, was let me get back to this hustle. So I started writing a script in rehab. That's how mad I was. I wasn't listening to no therapy. I had been therapized my whole life that it felt like, you want me to focus on the problem? Well, how am I gonna hack this focusing on the problem thing? And how am I gonna find my way back to this hustle so I can get back to my ego? Because really all I cared about was my ego. I didn't give a about getting well. You know, it was all about get well for you, get well for the camera. I've experienced ego death. You can't run no more. Bro, you gotta let go. You gotta let go in full. And I wanna get in my car and I drive up to Utah. And I'm in Utah for 3 months. And while I'm in Utah, they take my cell phone from me. And if they didn't take my cell phone from me, I was never gonna be able to deal with what I needed to deal with. I had never known how to pray because I could never cultivate silence. I had no absence in my life. Every unforgiving minute was full of some fucking scroll or some more like ego feed, constant, nonstop rotation of this ego thing and that ego thing and just constant fulfillment of like my own personal desires. And they took my phone from me. And just for that reason alone, I would urge anybody to go this route if you're in a situation like mine, just to get the phone out of your pocket. And what that gave me was time to like really assess what had been my operating systems. What had been like the motivational force in my life, which was always me. It was always ego. It was always
even the smallest decision to even go into food, to everything you eat,
everything was ego. Everything was ego. I would eat that not because it tasted good, but because it would do this or do that, you know? And when do you become a man? When you get a driver's license? Like, what do we do? You're 16, we give you a driver's license. Okay, well, wait, like, you get a job? Like, when do you become a man? You become a man when you become responsible for other people. And part of that is taking accountability. Yep. I grew up in a culture that told me going to war made you a man. Going to prison and coming back makes you a man. Making $1 million makes you a man, you know? And it doesn't. And you don't know it till you've done all these things and realize, damn, I'm still a little fucking boy. Yeah. Or been around people who've been there a bunch of times. Also, my definition of warrior has changed.
Me too.
Like, you know, I didn't really know what that meant. And really, it's about bringing others back. And that's my whole fucking mission, dog, really. Is just to like, dudes who've been where I've been or something similar, just know it gets better. It does, like. It don't make no sense. It doesn't make no sense. It's irrational. It doesn't make any sense on paper that I could have joy in abundance in my life, that I could feel any kind of joy in my life after being what I've been.
Pain is an adhesive, bro. If you've been through it, you can connect to people, period, end of story.
Rock bottom. Bottom isn't when you experience the worst moment of your life. Definitely. Bottom is when you change. It's about what you do with it once it happens. So like, you know, I had no love in my life. I had no purpose in my life. My whole purpose, as you know, was just craft. It was just, I'm gonna be good at this thing, and that's all that I have. The only thing I care about in life is being a good actor. And that's such a vapid, shallow existence. And he said, welcome to AA. And he said, I need you to go home and clear out, like clear the decks. And I'm like, nah, man, like for me, and I don't know if you felt this way, but every woman was the one for me. There was never a two. If you liked me, you were the one. And that had to do with my insecurity and my fear. And he's like, well, look, man, I'll tell you what, you know, you can keep doing it your way or you can try some new shit, because the way that you're living, you're doomed, is what he said. You're doomed. That was the word. And I flipped to this page. He made me flip to this doctor's opinion we got in our book. And in the doctor's opinion, how our book starts, it mentions the word doomed. And he's like, this isn't like another AA guy. This is a doctor telling you you're doomed if you don't figure this shit out. And he goes, to put it in perspective, if you went to Kaiser Permanente right now, and they sat you down and put your, x-rayed you and put your x-ray up on a light board, and you're looking at a picture of your clavicle, and the doctor said, hey man, you see that gray spot just above your chest cavity? You're doomed. And you wouldn't be thinking about the job that you got to get to, or the girl you got to hold on to, or where you're going to go for Father's Day, or you immediately, your whole life would get very small, and the only rational response to that kind of information is, well, what do I do? And I'm driving back from the beach back to where I'm living, and I get out of my car and her bags are packed. She's on her way out. And something in me, from having heard what I just heard, what feels like this is now I can't get no lower. I hear this like I can't call it, and it becomes like the most diplomatic breakup I ever had in my life. And I say, what can I do? And can I get you a car? And she goes, no, don't worry about it. Go get well.
I just want to give you one more opportunity, if you want it, just to speak about your wife, man, and just about what she means to you, and her path and her relationship with all this. I know she's been a part of your life for a long time, but just if you feel in it, just speak on her.
Yeah, well, I'll never be able to speak on it. I don't know nothing like this relationship. I never have in my life. I never had, even my parents, even my father. I never had what I got with her, which is to enter my life, to be with me. She had to take a loss. She had to eat shit to be with me. To be with me, she had to re-enter being a part of my life. She had to take a hit in ways that I've spoken about before, and in other ways too, probably, And what I know love to be is selfless, loving action. And I've never known anything as loving or as selflessly active as what this woman did for me in my life. She showed up for me at a time when, this is the first time I saw her. We had been estranged for years because of my jealousy. She went and did a movie with another actor, and I thought she was cheating on me, so then I cheated on another. It was just a mess. Shit. It was all weak shit, little boy shit, nonsense. And we hadn't talked for 2 years when all this shit hit. I wound up at this rehab, right, in Utah, and they do something called Family Week. And every week on a Sunday, everybody who's involved in the program has their family show up on these Skype calls. And everybody will show up in the same room. Your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your wife, your friends, whatever.
Just you and the people? Or
no, it's you, the whole squad of you that are in this group. 12 of us in my class. And everyone's family. Everyone's family pops up on the screen. Week 1, no one shows up. For me, no one. They got the calls. I know they got the calls, but no one showed up. My mother, my father, no one showed up. Manager, friends, no one showed up. Week 2, same thing. So I'm sitting in this room, and even the person who's therapizing me, she's starting to feel like this. She's empathizing with where I'm at. Everybody else in the room, we got a dude who this isn't just alcoholics shit. This is fucking arsonists and child predators and all kind of wild people in this group, right? And they got people showing up for them, and I don't have nobody showing up for me. Week 2, week 3, I'm there 90 days. There comes a point where Family Week comes around, I say to my therapist, I'm not gonna go. I don't want to subject myself to this shit. I'm on a path, and let me just stay here. I don't want to keep reminding myself of how my situation is. Mm-hmm. And she says, no, I think you should show up this week. And I show up thinking, all right, my mom's gonna be on there. My mom will be on, and Mia is on the screen. You don't deserve that kind of shit. You know what I mean? You don't deserve that kind of shit. I don't deserve that kind of shit. I done put her through years and years of fucking nonsense, bro. Just and I don't have nothing to offer her either. You know what I mean? I'm in the middle of my shit. I'm 2 months into this program. I don't even have nothing going on. I have nothing going on. I'm making this list. She's at the top of the list, but I'm not reaching out to her or nothing like that. And you heard her voice, she's like a fucking angel, you know what I mean? Everybody does that shit, and I'm fucking gone, and so they let her go first, because I can't even fucking believe, and they all know, because I ain't had no family show up for me, and she unmutes, and she's like, hi, Shia, and it's she's prepping a movie, she ain't got no fucking time for this, but she found time, and she said, hi, Shia, and we just smiled, we had nothing else to say, but she saved my fucking life, dog, before the kid, before the job, before before God, before any religion, before a laugh, before a laugh, before Bo, before a phone, before anything, was this woman's face. And there wasn't no promises made, wasn't no long conversation being had, nothing, just her presence, the ministry of presence. Sometimes that's all you need to offer a person who's in a situation like that, is like, just to be present. And she was present for me at a time when I didn't deserve to have nobody in my life. She's a real one, man. She's a real one. And I'll never be able to. It's the first time I really understood love, because I didn't have nothing to give. And I was sitting there thinking like, well, I don't have nothing. And you're showing up for me like you're gonna be tied to this shit. It didn't make no fucking sense. And love is irrational that way. You can't rationalize real love. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And I had spent my whole life trying to rationalize it. Yeah, she gave me hope, bro, when I was really like running on fumes. I wasn't running on empty, but I was running on fumes. I'd had a sponsor in my life who was he was saying, yo, be patient, the shit will show up. Miracles will show up. This was another miracle. Bags packed is a miracle. You know, them laughing in the car is a miracle. My wife's face on the Skype call is a miracle. It starts to add up where, you know, it becomes this like, it creates faith.
You will be father?
Yeah, in March.
And what do you think the best gift a father could give a daughter is?
Unwavering stability, the Rock of Gibraltar, unmovable, unshakable. I think of it this way. I think it's true for men and women. When a little kid goes to a park and they've never been to a park before and they see a bunch of little kids playing and mommy and daddy are right here. They go out 2 or 3 steps and they get scared and they come back and they grab the hand and the hand is there. And then they go out a little bit further and they take 10 steps. And then they get scared and then they come back and they grab for the hand and the hand is there. That's a parent. I'm always here. No matter what, I'm always here. That's the gift of that I always wanted from my parents, that I hope to give to my child is stability, is to be a rock, an unmovable, unshakable, forever love, an unjudgmental hand. I'm always here. You come to find that most of these stories of saints in the faith were f***ups. Full-blown f***ups. They weren't perfect people who did perfect shit their whole lives and then wound up... They had to have experienced real negative shit in their life to be able to have this other thing, this salvation, this hero's journey. They're explaining saints to me, it's like the hero's path, you know? And I'm a writer, I'm in my head, you know, what is my hero's journey? I'm always asking myself, well, what? And I always thought it was gonna be through the craft. That my hero's journey was kid from the bottom, came to Hollywood with no fucking training, and now I'm like, you know, working with these people and this, and I'm doing that. And that was my hero's journey, and it was so curt. It was so blunt and lazy. And it wasn't like this other thing that's available. And so you get around these dudes and you hear about their path and how these guys got there. And you start meeting dudes who like professional tennis players, you know, got lost on steroids, you know, drugged up, got completely wayward, and then decided to enter the order. And so these are dudes who know something about competitive sports. They know about like ego in the way that I do. The only people I've ever been able to feel like I'm close to in terms of the way that I deal with my craft is athletes. It's sports figures. And you find that a lot of sports figures are deeply insecure people. You know, you get respect based on what you can do and how hard you work. And sports is like that. And that's a shitty way to live, because everything that comes to you is based on you and what you do. And if everything in your life surrounds you and is centered on you, you become a vapid, self-interested, selfish, self-centered human being. How could you not? The world is happening in front of you. The default setting already is that you're completely self-absorbed. But then when you're involved in a meritocracy, like working for commission, basically, then it's all about your efforts. Your efforts dictate how your life is gonna go. Yeah, and that really is my purpose in life now, is to like be able to express the reality of my life, that you could be where I just was. Now I don't need to be anything. I don't need to be a certain this or a certain that to have permission to have friends, or a wife, or anything. Like I deserve it. And that's a hard thing to say, that you deserve love, when on paper, no, you don't. So I was there for 90 days, and in that 90 days, I made a list of all these people that I had hurt, and I mean, a bunch of happened, but I came out and just hit the ground running, trying to make amends, trying to right these wrongs. And this is also still a part of that. There's some people who don't want to talk to me, you know, and I understand that. And so my purpose now is to be patient.